Hey everyone, and welcome to another deep dive. This time we're looking at how one Kenyan university is going all in on student mental health. We got this super interesting article from University World News.
Okay.
It's called Psychological First Aid Boosts Student Mental Health Support. And yeah, this is not your typical counseling center kind of thing.
Right.
We're talking about training a whole campus.
Wow.
I mean, even accounting students are learning psychological first aid.
Seriously.
I
I know,
know.
right? That's really interesting because I think that that's something that's really unique is that it takes the focus off of it just being like professionals in a clinic,
Yeah,
and that there's a way to actually build a culture of caring where everybody feels empowered to be able to help.
totally. So set the scene for us a little bit. Why is this approach so needed, especially in a university environment?
Well, I think we all know that students are under a lot of pressure these days.
For sure.
And especially after the pandemic, the article highlights some research from USIU-Africa, which is the university that we're going to be focusing on in this deep dive. And they found that there's been a huge increase in things like anxiety and depression on campuses. Like it's like a perfect storm.
Yeah.
You've got the academic stress, you've got the social isolation, and then this overwhelming uncertainty about the future.
Oh, totally. It's like this total pressure cooker environment.
Yeah.
I mean, even thinking back to when I was a student, it's like, whoa. So how is USIU-Africa tackling this?
Yeah.
The article keeps mentioning psychological first aid. But to be honest, I'm not even sure what that means.
Yeah, I think it sounds a little bit intimidating at first,
Yeah.
like it's some kind of intense medical procedure,
Right.
but it's actually much simpler than that.
Okay.
The World Health Organization emphasizes that psychological first aid, or PFA, is actually for everyone. And it's about providing this immediate practical support
Okay.
in the aftermath of a crisis. So
Yeah.
this could be like a natural disaster, a personal tragedy, or even just everyday moments when somebody's really struggling.
So say a student's having a panic attack in the library
Uh-huh.
and their friends have been trained in PFA. Could they step in and know what to do?
Exactly. Like
Uh-huh.
imagine a student whose home was flooded and they're dealing with the emotional trauma,
Oh, yeah.
practical, chaos of being displaced. And then on top of that, they're trying to keep up with their studies.
Oh, my gosh.
So PFA equips their peers to be that first line of support, to listen, to validate their feelings, and help them access resources.
Yeah.
So this could be connecting them with the university counseling services, or even just helping them find a safe space to de-stress.
That's amazing. It's like this network of support that's just woven into the fabric of the campus.
Yeah.
But how does a university actually make that happen?
Well, that's where USIU Africa's program is so impressive.
Okay.
They've actually trained not just students, but staff and faculty too,
Wow.
in psychological first aid. And get this, they've trained over 300 students and 80 staff members. And it's all led by these experienced counseling psychologists.
Those are some serious numbers.
I know, right?
But is it actually working? I mean, can a few hours of training really equip someone to handle these really complex situations?
Yeah, that's a really good question. And to be honest, that's what I was wondering too when I first read this.
Yeah.
But there are some really positive signs.
Okay. What are you seeing?
Well, the article reports that there's been a 50% increase in students going to the university counseling services since the program started.
Wait, so more students are having problems?
Well, not necessarily. What's really interesting is that this could mean that students are just feeling more comfortable reaching out for help. That maybe there's less stigma around mental health.
Okay, I see what you mean.
And that they're more aware of the resources that are available.
So it's instead of suffering in silence, they're like, okay, I know there are people who can help me with this.
Exactly. And think about it. If you were struggling, wouldn't you be more likely to seek help?
Yeah, probably.
If you knew that your friends, your professors, even the staff,
Yeah.
were trained to listen and understand.
For sure. That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
It's like they're creating a culture where asking for help is like a sign of strength,
Yes.
not weakness.
Exactly.
And by catching these issues early on, they can maybe prevent them from becoming bigger problems later.
Right. It's about being proactive
Yeah.
instead of just reacting when things reach a crisis point.
I'm really liking this approach,
Yeah.
but I got to ask, are there any real-world examples of how this PFA training has actually made a difference?
Oh, for sure.
I need a story.
Okay, well, the article actually highlights this student named Lillian Njorge,
Okay.
and her story really shows how powerful this approach can be.
What happened with her?
Well, so Najorj is a student at USIU-Africa.
Okay.
And what's really interesting is that she's getting her master's in marriage and family therapy.
Oh, wow. So she's already into this whole mental health thing.
Yeah, she's like a rock star when it comes to this stuff.
But how did the PFA training, specifically impact her?
Well, she actually says that the training helped her land a job interview.
Huh.
But beyond that, she talks about how the skills she learned have been super helpful in both her personal and professional life.
Like what specifically?
Well, she says it's made her better at responding to crises, improved her communication skills, and given her these practical tools to help other people.
So she's like a walking embodiment of the program's goals.
Totally.
What were some of those practical tools that she's talking about?
Well, she mentions active listening techniques, stress management strategies, and understanding how to refer people to professional help when they need it.
Wait, even the referral part is important.
Oh, yeah.
Why is that?
Because PFA is not a replacement for professional help.
Okay, right.
It's about knowing your limits and knowing when to connect someone with the right resources.
It's like you're a first responder. You provide that initial aid,
Mm-hmm.
but you also know when you need to call in the experts. Got it. That makes a lot of sense.
Mm.
And I think it really shows how holistic this approach is. It's not just about helping others. It's also about taking care of ourselves so we can actually be there for those around us.
Yes.
What stood out to you the most about Najorj's story?
You know what really resonated with me was what she said about community engagement.
What did she say about that?
Well, she emphasized that PFA isn't just about individual skills. It's about creating this network of support, connecting with resources, and recognizing that we all have a role to play in supporting mental well-being.
Yeah.
Whether it's at a university, in our workplaces, or even just within our families and friends.
That is a powerful message.
Mm-hmm.
And it really speaks to this potential ripple effect of this kind of training. Like, what if more universities and more workplaces, even more communities, adopted this approach? What kind of impact could that have on society?
Wow, now that is a thought-provoking question.
Right.
And it's something that's worth diving into even more as we learn more about the program and its implications.
Totally. But before we do that, let's not forget about Peter Kariuki. Remember, he's the accounting student whose home was damaged in the floods.
Oh, right. Yes, of course.
I'm really curious to hear about his experience. What role did PFA play in his recovery?
Well, his story's a good one, and I think it's the perfect place to pick up when we come back from this break.
Sounds good.
Yeah.
I'm ready to hear it. All right, so Peter Kariuki.
Yeah.
Let's hear it.
So his story, I think, really illustrates how PFA can be so valuable in these moments when somebody just feels totally overwhelmed.
Yeah.
Remember, this is a student whose home was damaged in the floods.
Right.
He was dealing with the emotional fallout, the practical, chaos of being displaced.
Yeah.
And then on top of that, he's trying to keep up with his accounting studies.
Oh, man, that's like a whole other level on top of what's already a pretty intense time.
Exactly.
Wow.
And what's really powerful is that he talks about how those PFA sessions gave him this outlet to just process all the anger and confusion that he was feeling.
Yeah.
It wasn't about finding a quick fix or pretending that everything was okay.
Right.
It was about having a safe space to just be real about what he was going through.
And this was with other students, right?
Yes, that's a key part of it. He specifically mentions that it was other students who actually encouraged him to go to the PFA sessions. Like, they saw that he was struggling, they reached out to him, and they literally walked with him to the sessions.
Oh, that's beautiful.
It's such a great example of how peer support can be so powerful.
Yeah.
Especially on a college campus where everybody's already facing these shared pressures.
It makes me think about, times in my own life when I've been through stuff. Sometimes just having somebody who can listen without judgment,
Yeah.
makes all the difference.
Absolutely. And that's really what PFA is all about, right? Creating that sense of validation and belonging,
Yeah.
letting somebody know that they're not alone in what they're going through.
So we've seen how PFA can help students in these really personal crisis moments.
Yeah.
But what about the bigger picture? Does this have any impact on the overall campus culture?
That's such a great question. And I think it gets to the heart of what's so innovative about USIU-Africa's approach.
Okay.
Remember that 50% increase in students seeking help.
Yeah.
That's not just about individual students feeling more supported.
Okay.
It's about a shift in the whole campus climate. It's like weaving a safety net across the entire university.
I like that analogy. So instead of just catching people when they fall, it's about creating an environment where they're less likely to fall in the first place.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And that's where the training of staff and faculty comes in. Imagine a professor who's been trained in PFA. They're more likely to notice if a student is struggling.
Okay.
They're better equipped to offer support, and they're more likely to connect that student with the resources they need.
Yeah, I can see that happening. So everyone's looking out for each other.
Yes.
Okay, I'm buying into this.
Yeah.
But I need you to level with me for a minute. This sounds amazing in theory,
Yeah.
but is it actually sustainable? I mean, training hundreds of people takes time and resources
Right.
and commitment.
Yeah.
Can a university really keep this up long term?
That's the million-dollar question. And I think it's one that a lot of folks are asking
Yeah.
as we see these new and innovative approaches to mental health. But here's what I find so encouraging about this.
Right.
By making PFA part of the university's core,
Yeah.
USIU-Africa is sending a clear message that this isn't just a quick fix.
Right.
It's a fundamental change in how they value mental well-being.
Okay.
It's like they're saying, this is who we are, this is what we believe in, and we're going to invest in it for the long haul.
That's awesome. It makes me think about the bigger picture. What if other universities, colleges, even high schools adopted this model? Could we actually create like a generation of students who are more resilient, more empathetic, more equipped to handle the challenges of the world?
Now you're talking. Because if this model works, and if we can replicate it and adapt it to different situations, it could really change things.
Imagine a world where seeking help for mental health is just as normal as seeking help for a physical injury.
I love that.
Right. And it starts with changing how we talk about it.
Right.
Destigmatizing it.
Yeah.
Making it something we can all talk about openly, honestly.
Exactly.
And USIU-Africa is showing us that it can be done.
Yeah.
It's not just a nice idea. It's actually possible.
Yeah.
They're proving that if you have the commitment and the right approach, we can create environments where people feel safe, supported, and empowered to actually prioritize their well-being.
I'm totally on board with this. It's so inspiring.
Yeah.
But it's also a call to action.
Yeah, it makes me think, what can I do, like in my own life, to create that kind of culture, whether it's at work, in my family, with my friends?
That's the question, because change starts with each of us. Taking action, having those difficult conversations, advocating for better resources, and supporting each other when things get tough.
So much truth right there. USIU-Africa is a great example. That positive change is possible. But it starts with each of us stepping up.
Yes.
Okay, I'm getting a little fired up over here. But we do need to be realistic.
Yeah, of course.
Are there any potential downsides or limitations to this approach that we should be thinking about?
Yeah, you're right to be cautious. I think it's important to acknowledge that any program, no matter how well-intentioned, has its limits.
So what are some of the things that we should be aware of?
Well, one concern might be making sure that the training is really good.
Okay.
And that it's consistent.
Yeah.
If it's not done well, it could actually do more harm than good.
Right.
So it's important to have qualified trainers, a curriculum that's based on evidence, and ongoing support for the folks who've been trained.
Makes sense. It's like anything else. You got to invest in it properly.
Yeah.
If you want to see the real benefits.
Exactly.
What else?
Another challenge might be managing expectations. PFA is a great tool, but it's not a magic bullet. Yeah. It's not going to solve every single mental health problem.
Right.
And it's important to be upfront about that.
So it's not meant to replace professional help. It's more about complementing it.
Right. PFA is about giving that immediate support, being that listening ear, that connection to resources. But for more serious or long-term issues, professional help is still crucial.
Okay, that's a good distinction to make. I think it shows that we need like a multifaceted approach to mental health, one that involves both professional services and these community-based support systems.
Exactly. And speaking of community-based support, there's another part of USIU-Africa's program that I think is worth mentioning.
Okay, what is it? What's this extra special sauce?
Well, they're connected to this organization called the Kenya Mental Health Federation.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, and so this is really cool because it shows that they're not just like, doing their own thing in isolation.
Okay.
They're actually plugged into the broader community.
Gotcha.
The Federation brings together all these different folks, like mental health professionals, advocates, organizations, and the university is like right there with them.
Wow. So they're not just trying to keep it all within the campus walls.
Yeah.
They're part of like a bigger ecosystem.
Yeah, I think that's so smart. Because it means that they're not trying to reinvent the wheel or do it all themselves. It's about collaboration, sharing what works and using the resources that are already out there.
It's funny you mentioned that because I was just thinking about some of those potential limitations we were talking about earlier, like making sure the training is top-notch and managing expectations and all that. I feel like that connection to the community could really help with that.
I think so too. Because if you're working with people who are already doing this work, who are experts in the field, you're way more likely to get it right.
It's like you're building on this foundation that's already there.
Exactly.
Okay, so USIU-Africa is doing some really innovative things.
For sure.
But why should you listening right now care about this? What does this all mean for you? Even if you're not in Kenya,
Yeah,
even if you're not a student,
that's the real question, isn't it?
what can we learn from all this?
I think this story really pushes us to rethink what mental health support could be. It doesn't have to be limited to, therapists' offices or hospitals. It can be part of our everyday lives, in our workplaces, our schools, our communities.
It's about changing the whole culture around mental health, right?
Totally. Making it okay to talk about it.
Yeah.
Making it normal to ask for help.
And USIU-Africa is showing us that it's not just some pie-in-the-sky idea. It's actually possible.
Right. They're doing it.
They're walking the walk.
And they're proving that when you have the commitment and the right approach, you can create spaces where people feel safe, supported, and empowered.
I love that. And it's so inspiring.
It is.
But it's also like a call to action. It makes me think, what can I do in my own little corner of the world to create that kind of culture?
That's such a good question to ask ourselves. Because at the end of the day, change starts with each of us.
So true.
Taking those first steps, having those tough conversations, speaking up for better mental health resources, and being there for each other when times get hard.
USIU-Africa is proof that change is possible.
It really is.
Well, we got to be the ones to make it happen.
Absolutely.
Well, this has been a fascinating deep dive.
It has.
We've learned so much, from understanding what psychological first aid even is, to seeing how it's making a difference in students' lives, and then thinking bigger about how we can create a more mentally healthy society.
I hope you've all enjoyed this deep dive, and that you're leaving feeling informed and inspired.
So to wrap things up, I want to leave you with one final thought. Imagine you're in charge.
Okay.
Your mission is to create a more mentally healthy environment, whether it's at your workplace, your school, or even within your family.
What would you do?
What's the first step you would take? What kind of support systems would you put in place? What would be your bold move?
That's a good one.
Because USIU-Africa is a great reminder that change is possible. But it starts with each and every one of us.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive, everyone.
We hope you found it insightful and thought-provoking. And until next time, take care of yourselves, take care of each other, and keep those conversations going.